Okay, thank you. And again, my name is Skip Sauls. I'm a Director of Product Management, and I've been with Salesforce for 3 years in September. I am now working on the Wave platform and was previously working on technologies such as Visualforce and Lightning Components. And many of you in the room I've met in those capacities. I moved to the Wave team at the end of last year, December. And my role is that of the enterprise BI platform, as well as the broader role of outreach to the community, both partners and developers, folks like you, for example. So how do we build this up and show people all the great things we can do with Wave? That being said, I'm not going to give you a marketing pitch tonight. In fact, I can't do a very good marketing pitch for Wave because I'm still new enough to it that, to me, I look at it as a bunch of data and APIs and features more so than what all the cool stuff I can build with dashboards and that kind of thing. So if you want the Wave sales pitch, there's lots of folks who can do that better than I can. That being said, I'm very passionate about developers. When I was on the Lightning team, we worked on exposing things, making things available in terms of tools, APIs, and features. And I'm very excited to work with Wave because we have a lot of really cool stuff that will make it easier to use with Force.com, which many of you are familiar with. And I hope you'll see that we've made a lot of progress in integrating Wave into Salesforce. There's been this perception that Wave, like many acquisitions, is way out there somewhere. But you'll see that there's a lot of stuff that is just like Force.com because it is Force.com. And I think that'll make it very easy for you guys to take it and incorporate it into your existing applications. This presentation will be used back and forth with demos. I promise you we won't try to dive into every single slide into detail. If I'm missing something in terms of detail, just raise your hand and ask a question. I'm not flustered by that. In fact, I encourage it. And then we'll have Q&A afterwards. I also have several folks from the Wave team who join me here. On the back row, we have Alex here, and Nima, and Chris, and then Gabe here on the end. And we represent the PM team, devs, and also the ISV team. So lots of folks here who can help me with questions and also help you if you want to ask things that relate to how to get things on AppExchange, how to become a partner, how to work with our APIs, and that sort of thing. If we don't have answers for you, just ask. We'll figure them out and either get back to you with it if we can't answer them ourselves. Okay, forward-looking statements, formerly known as the safe harbor slide. I'm going to show you some things tonight that are definitely not in the current product. We're going to talk about some cool futures, things that are coming up in the release that's summer 16, but also things we're building to show at Dreamforce, things that will come in winter 17 and beyond. And don't use these for purchasing decisions and so forth. And you've probably heard this numerous times, but I have to cover myself. I do try to say we plan to, we hope to, we might, to kind of couch everything that way. Just keep in mind you're seeing some cool stuff that not everybody gets to see. We don't show this to a lot of customers we're selling to because these things are futures. So just keep that in mind. A couple things here to point to. Please use these various channels to talk about Salesforce development. You're probably familiar with most of these. If not, we have all the various social media channels. And of course, there's developers.salesforce.com. And Trailhead, something we all love. We've got 2 Wave trails and I think some more on the way. And we're working on getting a Wave developer trail out at some point that'll be focused on the programmatic developer, the person doing packaging and things like that. No time frames on that. It may be a few months out. There's a big queue for this, as you can imagine. But there are some cool intros to Wave and cool ways to learn things. And you also get an org out of this that will have Wave enabled on it so you can play with it, so you can try things out today. It's currently releasing on the spring release. It'll be updated to summer when that goes out in production. These don't go on to pre-production orgs. This will be in prod sometime in June, I would guess. But again, a cool way to get into it. Okay, what are we going to cover? A little bit about what is in Wave, but again, I'm not doing a Wave overview or Wave pitch in that sense. So I'll talk about it at a general level and kind of show you things. But there's better presentations than I will give you in terms of how to use Wave for all the cool dashboard building and how do you build it in your app and so forth. I'm going to talk a lot about the Wave API and what we call Wave Everywhere. And we're going to talk a lot about the packaging and how you can put things on AppExchange, what you can do to work with us as a partner and so forth. And then a lot of roadmap type features. We've got some really cool things we're working on. Some you will be familiar with, others we'll talk about and show you kind of the directional we're taking with it. And we want your feedback on those. So please reach out to us either directly here or through various channels and let us know the things you'd like to see. How would it make it easier for you to use? One thing I'm very passionate about is that Salesforce has a great declarative user platform. Many of you know that. You can use all kinds of tools without writing code. In fact, we're known for low code, no code, et cetera. I'm also a true believer that that is not where things end. We talk about the declarative cliff, where we take you way up this hill and say, look at all this cool stuff. Then you say, but I need to do this. And we say, oh, start over again down here with Visualforce or Lightning or Apex or something. And it's not impossible to build yourself back up to that feature or functionality, but it's not always as easy as it should be. So with Lightning components, we started doing a lot of things to try to smooth that out. So from app builders, Lightning components, it's a little easier. And we're doing the same thing with Wave. We want you to be able to build some really cool things using our various designers and builders. And we need to extend that, be able to do so via proper APIs and SDKs and so forth. So it doesn't feel like there's a big disconnect between the two worlds. Okay, Wave platform overview. These are taken from some of our general slides. Effectively, we've got a great platform for you to take large amounts of data and query that data in ways that it would be difficult to do on Force.com. People have tried to do this with Apex and so forth, and the vast amounts of data can be overwhelming. You run into limits and that sort of thing pretty quickly. Wave has much higher limits. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's in many cases 5 to 10 to 100 times larger than what you would get on Force.com. So there's one big value there if you've got large amounts of data. It's also got some really cool ways to work with the data in terms of queries and so forth. So beyond just simple SQL or SOQL, there's something called SAQL, S-A-Q-L, so the Salesforce Analytics query language optimized for this sort of thing. And then we've got all the great visualizations, the things you see in the various UIs here. If you haven't seen a Wave demo, we'll show a little bit of this here, but it can do some really nice visualizations. And what gets everybody's attention is the cool transforms when you change the chart types and it shifts between them. And you've probably seen versions of this with other libraries, but Wave has really made this easy and integrated it very well. And importantly, make it available across all the platforms, mobile. We've got iOS now, working on Android. We of course have web, and we integrate into Visualforce, into Lightning Experience, Aloha. And as you'll see, we're gonna let you run Wave outside of Salesforce, part of the Wave Everywhere initiative. And so the goal is for you to be able to bring analytics into every app, not having you go to analytics as a destination. So don't think of a dashboard as the only way you can use these things. And importantly, if you don't want to use our visualizations, you can use our queries, our data, and create your own visualizations, tables, integrations, and that sort of thing. So that's where I get excited, because that's where we can make this a really nice open platform that's approachable for all sorts of developers. Wave apps for sales and marketing. We now have something called Sales Wave, and then we have Service Wave. And these are respectively for sales, plugs in the Lightning experience, and also for the Service Console. So we've done a lot of work to integrate Wave into other Salesforce entities. You can now use those inside them, and they have a lot of pre-built graphs and charts and tables and that sort of thing. And you can configure those. It's not just a one-stop, stick it in there as a component. You actually have a lot of control over how you would use it inside there. And you'll start to see Salesforce using Wave throughout lots of other things. In fact, a lot of our verticals apps are now incorporating Wave. So we expect to have Wave pretty much everywhere within Salesforce in the very near future. Okay, so this kind of shows our vision of kind of where things have fit in the past, and we talk about the system of record, the business processes, the engagement here with collaboration, and then analytics as intelligence. And before, these have all been, in fact, there's a cool animated one that kind of shows these converging. We're trying to hit the sweet spot where you can bring all these together. If you look at a lot of classic analytics apps, they say go to this particular app, they're not usually web-based or even mobile-based, and use this sort of ancient-looking UI to do your analytics. And it's very good for a data scientist, a data analyst, the type who wants to sit there and live in that world. It's not really geared for the end users, not geared for the people using your apps, the sales people, the service people, all the customers and partners, all your employees who need to use it. So one of the goals of Wave is to make it so that every app can be driven by analytics. And instead of having queries against effectively static data, I hate to say they're dumb, but a lot of Salesforce stuff today is a table, a list, a chart that's just against static data. Reading it from a database, putting it on the screen, and the user has to try to make sense of that. One of Wave's goals is that we can make it more easy for you to provide something that helps that user get their job done. So you get the relevant information there and hopefully simplify your UI. Instead of having a mass amount of things on a dashboard, you have the one or a few things that you need to get the job done. Okay, so what's new? This isn't really new now because we're already hitting up on summer, but in Spring 16, there was a couple of things we brought out that are very relevant to the developer community. One is the Wave Platform API. This is very exciting because in the past releases, we had an internal API that wasn't used by a lot of people, but it was used by a few partners to build some early apps and that sort of thing. But we now have a full public API, fully GA, and it's built using the same connect/chatter technology that you're familiar with. So in the same way you can go in and get to Apex and Lightning and your S objects and that sort of thing, you can now hit the Wave endpoint, and underneath there you have all the Wave assets for dashboards, lenses, and so forth. And it's natively JSON by default. We didn't take a bunch of XML and try to smush some JSON out with it, so you'll probably appreciate that it's actually very easy to use. And it uses the same sort of security for authorization and that sort of thing that you're familiar with. So you get your OAuth tokens, your SAML tokens, and that sort of thing, and you start making calls against Wave. One of the cool features is you can do queries against this. So you can actually create an ad hoc query in this SACL, Salesforce Analytics Query Language. And again, SQL, SOQL, and SACL is kind of tough to spit all those out. But the cool part about this is you can run ad hoc queries that weren't created by the Salesforce Wave dashboard builders and so forth. So you didn't create these, you created these from your app. And you could take these and parameterize them, take the data, do something with it, merge it with other data sources and that sort of thing. It's actually very powerful. It's one of the things that we're hoping to help make a little bit easier for you to construct those queries. And we'll talk a bit about that in a few minutes. So again, something fun to play with. If you're an API person, you'll like it. It's just, REST or HTTP, whatever you'd like to call that whole class of things. I hesitate to call it all REST because I know the Restafarians get really upset because it's not pure REST. But this is actually very good REST. You'll find that it doesn't have a lot of baggage, and it is based upon Connect. So it's just like other APIs in terms of how you use it. So this is a little picture of what you would see in Wave visually. And the SAQL, the SAQL, is generated as you build this. And you get back a JSON result. And this is what you would see in the REST call. And inside here, boy, that's just Greek to the point you can't see anything, can you? I'm not sure if I can actually zoom in with that, but that actually has things like the fields and the values and that sort of thing, as well as the query. So that actually is something that's useful here, but not in this presentation. But the point is it's all very in the clear. And we are using the same APIs you would use. Salesforce likes to say API first. We're in the process of deprecating and removing the older internal APIs. So the goal is that everything is in the clear. You can do the same things we can do in terms of API access. Okay, Wave everywhere. This is something I'm very excited by because when I was working on Lightning Components, we heard time and again, I like Salesforce, but I need to use my own UI. I need to bring Salesforce into my app, whether it's my custom app, my portal, might be Microsoft, it could be SAP, it could be almost anything, but I can't always use Salesforce where I go into Salesforce. And it's not always about branding. Sometimes it's about security, it's regulatory. There's lots of reasons why people want to do this. And in the past, Salesforce has kind of put their foot down saying, no, you have to come into Salesforce. And if you want to integrate outside of Salesforce, you do so with an API. The problem with that is you have to rebuild the UI. So you see this awesome Salesforce UI, say, I want that in my app. But Salesforce says, no, you have to come here to get it. So our customers have asked for it and asked for it. And the Lightning Components team has been working on something called Lightning Out. The name might be R-Out officially. I'm not sure what the real name is going to be, but it's the idea of place that component into something externally and then act like it's right there in your page. In fact, it is right there in the same app as your native code. And you can do so with about 3 lines of code, so very easy. We're leveraging this for the Wave components. And the goal is that you would go into a dashboard builder and be able to say, basically share this dashboard, and we'll give you various types of markup depending on what the target would be. One of those would be the lightning out code. You could paste that into something on the remote site and have your Wave components running there inside of the remote host there. Now, when I say running inside of, we like to say it's running on SAP, running on Heroku, running on Amazon, running on Azure, Napa, whatever you'd like to think of. It's not really running on their server. It's running in the browser, and it's connected to their server and to Salesforce. And it uses things like cores and connected apps that you're probably already familiar with. So it's not like it's a voodoo technology where you can't understand what's happening there. It's actually very easy to set up. The cool part about it is it's something that uses the browser level security, uses content security policies, uses cores, cross-origin resource sharing, not the beer, but CORS. And it allows you to do some really cool stuff where you can have trusted hosts, if you will, one being Salesforce, one being the server, and the two can interoperate at the client level. Anyway, Lightning Out will get lots more traction as you build it towards Dreamforce and they GA it and that sort of thing. For Wave, we're going to leverage it so that you can actually take this little bit of code and place it inside of these various containers here. And we're actually in the process of working through that right now. We're hoping to have that for the winter 17 release. Today, there are a few other ways to integrate through things like iframes. Obviously, that's not the ideal mechanism, but you can actually use iframes oftentimes through a community. And if you're not familiar with Salesforce communities, they have a little bit different security posture than, say, Visualforce and Lightning. So if you go through the community, you have a little bit more leeway in terms of things you can expose. But Lightning Out will make that into a proper secure thing. And what we'll give you is a Wave component. And in many cases, you may not even know you're using Lightning. It might be under the covers. We'll give you a Wave API, let you embed it and that sort of thing. The cool thing about this is those components are running inside of the container. And today we do it on, what is this? Any page for Visualforce. We do it on things like in Lightning. I think the second slide shows running inside of Lightning Experience, inside of a record detail page, going to App Builder and bringing it. And then in the near future, putting it pretty much anywhere. So something very exciting that we'll be showing over the next few weeks. If you come to Trailhead DX, maybe we'll have a demo to show you some of those things as well. There's actually a Wave session at Trailhead DX. You say Trailhead DX or Trailhead X? Trailhead DX, so it's a DDX, okay.
Shared, that's what it's
okay, so it's a shared D. Okay, now I get it. So I'll make sure I don't say. Okay, I'm going to show a little bit of the demo here. And again, this is not the marketing demo. This is me as a developer kind of showing you some things, talking about what's in Wave. But I want you to kind of see some of the cool stuff that we're going to show you via the APIs in just a minute. All right, let's see if I'm logged in still. Yeah, this is actually what I do during the day when I'm trying to develop stuff. So I'm kind of ADD in that sense, that I have lots of things going on, wanting to try stuff out. So
you have 5 Slack tabs open?
I'm going to show you Slack in a little bit. I'll show you why this integration is interesting. So yeah, and I'll prove to you why this is a cool API, because we integrated with Slack in like 24 hours or less. It was a pretty cool little example. So this is a Wave Explorer. We've got various builders. If I want to create a dashboard like so, I can use an existing designer or the new designer in beta. I'll just try the new one here. And let's see if I've got a lens, a step. Let's create opportunities. And this gives me the default a count of rows, not very exciting. So let's provide a measure, and we'll say the average amount, and we'll also do a group and do it by account owner ID, like so. And basically, you're adding layers into this view here. In fact, one of the cool things is you can, as a dev, open up the Show SAQL tab or button here. And at the bottom, you'll see the SQL being, or the SAQL being generated here. So it gives you a view into it. If you're interested in what's happening behind the scenes, in the dashboard, you can also look at the JSON piece for it. We'll show that in just a second. So again, I'm not a data designer, I'm not even a designer, so I just do things kind of to show how interesting they are. But let's see if we can add another one in, like, I don't know, opportunity type maybe. Start getting a little color on here. And we'll do a save. And then we're going to drag this in to our dashboard, resize it a bit, like so. And this is the new designer. There's an older designer which also has similar features. The new one is still in beta, but we're working on getting a new version of that out soon. Sorry for the Greeking here. Wow, I didn't realize my display was, maybe I can make a lower resolution, it'll make everybody happier.
I mentioned the projector's a little tired.
Yeah. Oh, the recording stopped. Sorry about that.
No problem. We can minimize that.
Let me just first see if there's a better resolution that makes it easier to see. Larger text. Is that helping some? Okay.
You might not get as much on the screen.
That's okay. We'll adjust. Cool. So once you build the dashboard up, you can add other widgets. I mentioned being able to see the source. It's I think Command E. You can see here behind the scenes this generating this JSON document. And this is the cool thing here is that you can actually see everything behind them. There's no mystery there. This is the same kind of thing you could build yourself in JSON and do a post to create one inside of Wave using the API. So you have full access to it. You do post, you do get. If you want to update, you do a patch. So it's all the standard things you'd expect from a REST API. And again, it's in the clear, so to speak. So there's not a lot of mystery as to what's happening there. Now, what's interesting is we're actually putting everything in metadata on the Salesforce side. So it is actually going in. There's all the metadata, all the things for ALM. There's all sorts of ways for you to package this thing up. And you'll see you can now package up dashboards and lenses and data sets and that sort of thing. And we'll discuss more of that in a minute. So let's resize this a little bit here. Now I've really got too many tabs, so let's kill some of those. I'll kill all the Slack API stuff I've been reading. Okay, that'll be a little better. And then we have our new dashboard. We can edit it again. We can now take it and use this in various places. If you go to mobile, you'll get a view that's optimized for mobile, so it'll make it vertical on an iPhone and that sort of thing. So most of the things are flexible and dynamic in that sense. Yes?
Does it round trip through the JSON? Can you change things in JSON and have them reflected back in there?
Yes. In fact, if you're in the designer, you can edit the JSON there and then have it reflected in the view.
Oh, very cool.
And it does, I think, a little bit of validation to see if it's actually valid JSON. Now, that doesn't mean you can't write bad JSON that does something goofy, but at least it'll help you there. That being said, we're trying to get away from anybody who's an administrator to have to write JSON. While it might be fun as a developer to say, hey, it's just JavaScript, JSON, I can understand things. Obviously, if you tell an administrator or a business analyst or somebody, hey, just open this JSON tab up and type in things there, that's probably not going to work very well. So our goal is to minimize that, if not remove the need for it entirely. So have tools for everything. This actually shows you a bit of the structure. This is one of the things we've talked about to our designers. We need more contrast on our screens here. We've got a kind of a light gray here for these things, but you have apps and dashboards and lenses and data sets. And an app is effectively a collection of other assets. In fact, internally you'll see in the API it's called a folder, and that includes the dashboards, lenses, data sets, and so forth that are part of this thing. So it gives you a way to organize it. You can actually clone these things, copy them, move them to other apps, and easily organize things for your user. And you can have your own private app as well, so you can work in a space that no one else has visibility to. Dashboards gives you a way to basically take several different charts and other widgets and put them together into it. So several views onto the data and organize it. And then a lens gives you a way to actually create this chart and create the queries and that sort of thing. And then finally, the data sets are what you can actually point to and upload. And we've got a lot of cool tools for data sets and data flows, ways to get data into Wave. And a lot of the Salesforce stuff is supported out of the box. So the force.com objects you're used to. but you can write your own custom versions as well, so to bring in your custom objects, your custom S objects, as well as external data that's not in force.com. And that's one of the things we like to stress is that while we have done a lot of work to be on top of and work with force.com really well, you're not limited to things that are just in force.com. And you could, in fact, use Wave with data that's not in force.com at all. You could use it totally external data. And there's some pretty cool providers now that have built ways for you to hook into and bring data into Wave. And I think if I go here, you can see some of these. So Salesforce, bringing a CSV, Informatica, and then providers here. And you'll recognize a lot of these as partners we've worked with for force.com for a while here. So the goal is to make it very easy for you to bring this data in. Part of the goal of my team is to work with other teams within inside of Wave and bring out other features and APIs to make it even easier for you to do that kind of thing. And the goal is that anything you have in the world, whether it's mass amounts of IoT data, whether it is data coming from an existing legacy system, everything can go into Wave. By the way, those who don't know, Pat Patterson, Pat is now working at a cool company called StreamSets, and Pat did a really amazing integration into Wave, probably the first week or two you were there, and posted some cool videos, and they've got a really neat tool for working with Wave. So not to plug just one company over the other, but Pat has impressed with the stuff he did very quickly there. So see Pat if you want to integrate into Wave as well. He's done some neat stuff there. And you're probably familiar with Pat because he's formerly of Salesforce not that long ago, like a month ago, 2 months ago. Yeah. Anyway, hope I'm not embarrassing you. I think you're probably used to it. So.
No, but if you want to integrate with Minecraft, also talk to Pat.
Exactly.
I was going to say, I think that's everything embarrassing.
My 6-year-old, now 7-year-old, thinks you're amazing with the video I showed him of your integration into Minecraft, by the way. Okay, so back to demos in a second. Let's go back and look at a couple more pictures. And the next part is what's next. And this is actually what's coming in the, I didn't want to share, I wanted to present. There we go. So we have some new chart types coming. And one of the things we've got inside of Wave is a really cool charting engine, really cool rendering engine. There's some guys who've built some really amazing things that deal with all the cool transforms and stuff you see. I don't pretend to understand the math. These guys are much smarter than me when it comes to doing all the cool math behind that. I think they deal with particle physics and that kind of stuff. But we're adding more types. These are some things that are requested. The bar line combo that you see there, not super exciting, but it's a very common type of thing people ask for. And that's one of the things we want to do is make sure that if you move from another platform into Wave, you've got the common chart types you want, because not everybody wants to have the newest, latest, and greatest whiz-bang thing. They want something they're familiar with in their app. And then things like maps. We're working on future map type technologies, but this one will give you the ability to do some of the geo maps. And this name, Choropleth, I can't even say it. I've tried to say this numerous times. Apparently it's Greek for cool maps, I guess. But anyway, a Choropleth map is a map that says basically take the data and shade it and show you geolocations and that kind of stuff. It's not exactly the same as a heat map, I understand. So again, not my feature area, but we hope to open this up to developers in the near future so you can actually create your own chart types using this charting engine. And that's part of the things that my team is working on, is how do we open things up to you as a platform. And that'll be very exciting as well. Wave platform on AppExchange. This is super exciting. And the reason is we have a lot of partners who built lots of cool stuff that's on AppExchange. We have a lot of people who use packaging to distribute applications within their company. And before we had ALM, before we had all the packaging pieces in place, it was kind of difficult to move things around. You couldn't really go from one org to the other and move stuff around without manually recreating things and doing lots of manual integration. So this gives you the ability to use the standard tools you've been using in setup. And you now see here, and it may be a little tough to read, but inside there we have the various Wave assets. And boy, that's even smaller on my screen. So lens, data set, dashboards, data flows, and so forth. And it also does the spidering, which basically says go off and find all the dependencies and bring things in. So you say bring in a Wave app, and it'll go off and find all the dashboards, lenses, data sets, and that kind of thing. We might have a few feature areas that aren't fully baked. You might have to do some manual steps in the early days, but it's actually a very cool feature and something you can start using now if you're playing with the pre-release on GS0. It's exciting because you can also now sell your Wave applications. So you can package something, sell it to someone else, and it's a standard AppExchange offering. Features, I think I've covered most of these. LMA, License Manager Application, License Management Application. You can actually now license it for certain users. So you can say, okay, there's 10 licenses, and an admin can choose which users get to install it, which features, and that sort of thing. So all the things you've been able to do with standard Force.com packaging, you can now do with your Wave apps. And again, it's using the same technology as Force.com. It may be that the Wave runtime is not on Force.com running right next to Apex, but all of your metadata, all the packaging, that sort of thing are right there. So it'll be very, very easy to make these offerings. One thing to note, we don't do IP protection. And this is important to call out because everything is sent down to the browser as JSON, and that is naturally kind of in the clear. There's no real way to obfuscate that. So if you're looking for protecting your IP, that's probably not the best place to put it all right there. That being said, we're looking at ways we can make it more difficult for somebody to get to, but if you know enough about browsers, pretty much everything you send to the browser is a free-for-all if you know how to turn on the right plugins and that sort of thing and get to it, but at least prevent the casual folks from doing it. XMD, Extended Metadata, we're working on rounding out all the features for that. And this is something that we'll probably get a different name from marketing. We're being told that extended metadata scares people, but it's a very powerful feature, and we'll provide some nice tools around that. We've got a really cool tool we hope to be able to make available in the near future for you editing the metadata there. This sort of covers which features are supported or not. Again, we get to most of these things with the summer release, and we'll keep adding more of those in the future. We'll have a summer or a winter 17 column here in the near future. LMA support we covered. This is the standard license manager app. And we're one of the first new products to add LMA support in quite a while. A lot of things have just sit on top of a standard Salesforce license. So this is a new thing, and it shows another level of integration. This is something about the partner app models, supporting both ISV Force and OEM. This is sort of all kind of top level. We're not putting a lot of numbers about prices and that sort of thing. Gabe here in the back, if you want to wave your hand, Gabe, can talk to about this in detail. We're again trying to make it very approachable so that if you're a Force.com partner and have been building things already, you'll find it very familiar. So it won't be anything that's too awkward or strange. And a few partners here that we're working with. These are all committed in the pipeline and that sort of thing. Lots of partners, and I've been talking to a few of you. Maruthi here from Clarisoft, say, come build some cool stuff. We'll help you. I will say that we will roll out the red carpet if you want to come build apps and get them ready for AppExchange, and especially get ready stuff for Dreamforce. We actually bring partners into our offices here in Landmark and let them sit there and work with some of the devs very closely on stuff. So if you're aggressive, you want to get some cool Dreamforce cred for demos and keynotes and that kind of thing, and you can build something cool, just talk to us. We'll open up the gates, so to speak, and help you there. This is exciting because we'll now have lots of offerings there to add things onto Wave. And I look at AppExchange and say, well, this is all the stuff that Salesforce doesn't build out of the box. These are things that partners could add on. A lot of these now are focused on verticals and adding on businesses type things. We also want some more general purpose stuff. We think tooling might be something people do in the future. But because we have all the open APIs, in theory, someone could build their own builders and so forth and integrate with other tools. Roadmap. This is where it gets exciting. And again, this is definitely all in the safe harbor realm. But I want to show you kind of our view of where we're going with things. And this is not in any kind of priority order. You may have seen Salesforce presentations where they say we do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, very priority driven. This is meant to kind of show you all the various pieces in no particular order. This Wave platform here, that little cross over there, relates to the declarative and programmatic. And interestingly enough, there's a lot of stuff that's programmatic right now inside of the Wave platform, but it's not programmatic by intent. It's because it was the only way to get things in there, hand editing JSON and things like that, a lot of custom code. So part of my team's goal is to make it so we can officially support these things and give you official APIs and give you things that are GA quality and give you tooling and that kind of stuff that you can use to build lots of cool stuff. And again, I'm a programmatic guy myself. I'm very passionate about that. On the flip side, we're working to minimize the need to do things for programmatic users for the basic stuff, for the things you want to do day to day, building things. And I don't mean basic mean they're simple. I just mean the stuff you do commonly. But then also, when you run out of runway, so to speak, on those, you can turn around and do something programmatically and not have to start over again and do lots of hard work around that. Customer apps, we're providing Sales Wave, Service Wave, and some admin tools, obviously. That partner box there, that little dotted line there, that's what we want to fill in. That's what Gabe and his team are working on very rapidly. And by Dreamforce, we hope to have several of those filling in that piece right there. Wave Everywhere we've discussed in a lot of detail, and the goal is that anywhere you want to have something that has analytics-driven data, you can now put it there, whether it's mobile, web, whether it's desktop, whatever it might be, and not force you to use a particular framework for it. Again, we'd love for you to come use Lightning Experience, love to use Lightning Components, Visualforce, but that's not going to be a requirement. We want to make sure you're comfortable with using Wave anywhere you'd like to. And then Lightning, this is the year of Lightning. You might have heard a lot of the marketing pitch as a big run up to Dreamforce. And we're obviously working as hard as we can to make things integrated there. Make sure you can get to the Sales Wave app. Make sure you can bring your dashboards into App Builder and things like that very easily. And as part of the platform pitch, make sure that when you want to do something and interoperate with those dashboards, we can provide you with things like events and actions and so forth, so you can fully integrate into the full platform. And you'll find there's lots of cool features we're doing around that. So we're very big into integrating with Lightning, even if Wave itself isn't built on Lightning per se. It's not built on the Lightning platform exactly. So SDK, this is something that my team is working on now. And this is all roadmap for sure. This is my proposal to the team. We're actually iterating over this right now to see what we can deliver. But the real goal of this is to make it very easy for you to build programmatic Wave applications. And by that I mean I can open up an editor and with a few lines of code build a Wave app without having to do lots of work around how do I get to authentication, how do I get to these various objects. And instead of dealing with a bunch of REST calls through XHRs and that sort of thing, I get a proper object that says dashboard.set something, dashboard.get something. And all the mechanics of how that's done on the back end through REST and so forth is largely hidden from you. We're not going to say you can't do that. We're just saying you shouldn't have to do that for the very common things. And importantly, make it so that if there is a Wave visualization on the screen, there's a chart or dashboard there, you can interoperate with that. You can fire events, listen for events, and that sort of thing. And we're working through making sure that works very well. And that'll all be through Lightning Components. We're using the Salesforce technology to make that work well there. And then make it easy for you to get on AppExchange. The goal of the SDK is to make sure that that SDK that you use is already approved by the product security team. You can breeze through AppExchange reviews because you're using the official supported API. And get to mobile, both for Android and iOS. And the goal is to have it so that the SDK is similar when you move from one platform to the other, at least as similar as the languages will allow. So I could go from JavaScript to Swift to Java to Apex, and every time I would have my object, dashboard dot set something dot get something dot whatever verb, and it's largely the same. The differences might be in how you do callbacks and that sort of thing. Every platform is a little different there. And importantly, with things like the JavaScript SDK in particular, let you as developers build add-on packs, much like the mobile SDK does, saying, here's my integration with React, here's my integration with Angular, here's my jQuery Bootstrap integration, whatever that might be, in a pluggable, supportable way so that somebody can say, put it on GitHub, and it plugs into it. So we're thinking about a lot of these things that people have been doing. We think you'll appreciate the work we're doing to try to make this a nice, open, pluggable architecture. Targets, some of this will change for sure, but our goal is to have something available on Apex and for the web in the Winter 17 release, which is coming up soon, the pre-Dreamforce release. And that will most likely be in the form of a pilot or dev preview. I love dev previews because I don't have to deal with pilot licensing type stuff, and it's on all DE orgs, if you've seen those before. And we can make a big pitch to Dreamforce and say, hey, go get a DE org, go play with this thing and use it, make it available. And most likely you would be able to get a URL that's like /wave/SDK wave.js or something like that. Make it very simple for you to add to your apps. iOS probably won't happen in Winter 17. This was actually from an older slide. But our aspirations are various other platforms here. And then the target users, we're largely targeting partners and also the programmatic developers as customers. So those of you who want to sit down and write code and so forth. But we're trying to bring it up a level to what we think of as the citizen developers and the hero admins. And this is something I'm very passionate about because I've seen cases where someone says, hey, I opened up the Visualforce thing, and with a few tags there and a few configuration pieces, I built an app that satisfied the needs of my users, an ad hoc application. Sometimes it's an app that lives on for years and years, but they didn't have to do a lot of work, and importantly, they didn't write a lot of code. So it's not no code, but it's low code, and something we're working towards. Will we get there in the first release? Probably not, but that's what we're building towards. And ideally, we'll give you something that can be scripted either at JavaScript or even something higher level to make it easier to build these things. I'd like to get us to a visual, type thing where I can drag and drop a few things, configure it. My kid's been doing Scratch and things like that. I think that kind of stuff might be worth looking into. Could we generate things based on that? Efficiency. So this on the left shows the amount of code it takes right now to get a thumbnail preview out of our API. And it's because the way we do files as attachments, it's just the way things are done in Connect. It's not really a fault of Wave, it's just the way things evolved. But you do a lot of work and you get things like file readers and deal with buffers and that sort of thing. So you deal with 30, 40, 50 lines of code to do something that in the SDK would be dashboard.getPreview or getThumbnail. So we're trying to simplify a lot of the work you would do. And it's not to say you can't build all this. In fact, many of you who do a lot of development say, yeah, I could crank this out. But man, it would be nicer to use this, wouldn't it? And if we change things in the future, you get some API protection because you're calling this, and on the back end, this piece changes here over time. And that's something Salesforce will maintain, that particular version of the SDK. So as we go to version 37, 38, 39, and so forth, if we change things, it'll help shield you from that to a large degree. Some various platforms here. Again, these are very aspirational. Just sort of think of it that way. This is not even a real official picture. It's just want to paint that we want to be able to be available across all the platforms. Now, when you get to Apex, it's different because it's server side and you don't have the visualization layer, and probably you're not going to necessarily create all these assets from Apex. However, today, via callouts, you can do that. You can call it the REST API and build whatever you'd like to. But who knows what's the problem with that? You ever hit callout limits and things like that with Apex? So what we're going to do is make it so from Apex you can get to at least the queries early on, if not some of the higher level objects. So you'll get back dashboard, lens, and that sort of thing, and do proper Apex methods on that. And behind the scenes, we will take care of how that gets into the metadata and so forth. So you won't do REST calls for all that. Again, many of you have built this kind of stuff before. I know you can do it. It's just not a lot of fun, so we shouldn't have to do that. And the big thing with Apex is I want to take my existing Apex code and bring some Wave data into it and do something with it. Whether you think of it as mashing it up, making other calls, however you want to deal with that, we'll make that much easier to do so. I'm going to show you a little demo here in a second and talk about Wave Everywhere. We're already targeting a lot of different platforms here. And this SFX component and this R out plus SDK, and this is the mobile SDK thing here, are things we're working on for the winter release, winter 17. And the goal is that we will give you a component, a Lightning component, you can use in various places. And in fact, when you use Visualforce, you'll be using a Lightning component there through the Lightning components for Visualforce, so basically the Lightning out technology. So we'll have that same component across there. We're now working with Doug Chasman and others with using the new Lightning Locker service that you'll probably hear lots about to make it so we can build a much simpler Lightning component for Wave. Today with Wave, we have multi-levels of iframes and all sorts of wrappers because of things like security models and that sort of thing. So I won't go into the details about the Locker service, but if you haven't heard of that, look into it. It's very cool. It's going to change the way we do component level technology here at Salesforce. And then the mobile one, the goal there is to give you the ability to go into iOS, and we would give you something like a view controller that you can then embed into your iOS app. We're going to push hard to do Swift first and Objective-C second. I might lose that battle, but I am personally a bigger fan of Swift, and that's one I'd like to see us do. But the goal is that you can move into Swift and use the same SDK calls that you would see in JavaScript, and eventually do the same on Android. And again, Android is just because we're further away from the production version of that, but that's being worked on right now. So we're trying to get to parity on that platform. This shows Wave running in communities. This is exciting because lots of people want to provide communities for their users, and they want to bring the Wave data into it, so we've made that very easy. That again is using a Lightning component which calls out to the Wave visualizations here. And then external apps. This is a terrible picture. I'm not a designer, but this shows Wave running inside of PowerPoint Online. And this is again via the Lightning Out technology. Ideally, we wouldn't have this big white box here. We'd have a chart with prettier colors and that kind of thing. But this is something I did early on to show the interoperation. These horrible things here are record IDs, or dashboard IDs. Because in PowerPoint, you've only got one event you can really react to using their API, which is select. When on select, you get the text. So whenever you select it here, it would change the dashboard being displayed here, kind of showing the interoperation. Longer term, we want to make sure that via the SDK, you have lots of entry points for interacting with Wave. Most likely through a Lightning event, you'd be able to take whatever data is inside of PowerPoint or their other container, call out to the SDK, which fires an event that this dashboard or other renderer listens for and does some cool change here. And then the flip side of that is, when I click inside here, take whatever the context is and fire an event that the SDK can listen to. So your Lightning components, Visualforce pages, and that kind of thing. So make it so you can interoperate with Wave. It's not just something you're using as a little black box inside of the thing. And that's very exciting. I'm passionate about that because I think that's how we really build all these custom apps. People say, what are the use cases for it? I said, well, as soon as people realize they can do this, you'll get all kinds of use cases that people say, oh, I didn't know I could do that. That's enabling technology. So that's what's exciting there. Service Wave. I'm not a big Service Console user. I see it as from demos and that sort of thing, but we have a lot of people using it. So now you can bring Wave into that, and that's very exciting. We have a lot of people building the customer service applications and that sort of thing. All right, let me show you the Wave SDK demo. I want to caution you that this is a true demo, and it may come crashing and burning, but it's something that can be a lot of fun when it actually works. All right, so this demo here was written using the Heroku starter kit for this on the Heroku thing. The Heroku button, you click it, you get the little starter app. It's Node.js. I've added Bootstrap and jQuery and that kind of thing to build the UI. And importantly, I'm calling out to our API to get all the Wave assets here. The difference is that what I did is I'm going through my SDK prototype that we've been working on, as opposed to going through the API directly. So I'm not calling a REST call directly to get the assets you see on the side here. I have a call which is something like wave.getDashboards, wave.getApps, and this will go off behind the scenes and make the REST call. But the important part is my code is very simple now. My code is largely around building this UI. I spent more time making the UI do things than I did on the actual Wave piece. So Wave becomes another way to use a data source. I can now get to all the assets, I can do the queries and that kind of thing. If I click on one of these, my test dashboard, we see the JSON view. And again, this is what you would get back directly from REST. Those of you who know me know that I like to build little tool-like things. I started off doing tools years ago, so I always try to build a tool to kind of prove out the point and see things. I think the details view is just a little snapshot. That's the thumbnail thing we saw earlier, and this is what kind of inspired some of the SDK work. It's like, oh, we can make this easier for people by doing this. And the view is where it gets exciting because we now have the view being brought in. Now, this is an early version of it. The version that will be official will be a proper Lightning component here that you can embed via Lightning Out, and then you can register for events and fire events. So that'll be the contract between it. pure Lightning. If you've been doing Lightning components, it'll be exactly what you've been doing elsewhere. And we'll use that component all over the place. This screen being kind of small makes it a little less visible. And then I like to do little try it type things. This is not Fiddler, it's not quite as sophisticated as that, but it's the same vein where I can explore the API and I can do things like get the chart type. And I know these are chart 1 and chart 2. Click execute, and we see that's a pie. And I've told you I'm not a data guy, so that's why I end up with pie charts that look like that. Really shouldn't be a pie chart. I mean, I don't even know how that data set got that big. I have no clue how it got there. That's not my area of expertise, but it does make for an interesting moire effect there if you look at it closely. And the cool part there is I can do set chart type, and we'll put in chart 1 again, and we'll make it the vertical bar. Click execute, and we get the little wave transform there. Now, what's interesting there is my API call, and forgive this, it doesn't have the quotes it should have around this right now, but it's my dashboard.getChartType.setChartType, and then chart 1, and then vbar or pi, whatever. And in fact, you can do a, I think get chart types is in there. Do I have that? Maybe I don't have that one implemented. But you can actually query that and say what chart types are available for this thing. Now, our API probably won't mirror this exactly. This is kind of based on me just experimenting. But the goal is to give you an API to let you build up things. Our initial cut of the API is probably going to be a little less verbose than this, probably fewer entry points. We're going to keep it very simple and make it so you can build things and show things off. But over time, we want you to tell us what you want to do with this. How would you like to interoperate with it? We expect a lot of people to say, I want to embed this and do a few things and interoperate with my external app. Again, this is not driven by Wave over here. That's actually just a standard web application. It's just JavaScript and HTML. I'm using Bootstrap and jQuery as a very simple lowest common denominator type thing for the UI. You could hook it up to Angular, Polymer, React, whatever you'd like to.
Lighting design system.
Exactly. And importantly, use it also inside of Visualforce and inside of Lightning components to make it very easy to use this across there. And our goal for the SDK is to not tie you into a particular framework. So if you want to use it in Lightning or inside of Visualforce, that's great. If you want to use it in something else, that's fine as well. We're not going to dictate the programming model. But we'd like to have partners build the add-on pack saying, here's the React pack for it, here's the Angular pack, and that sort of thing. So I think that's very exciting. We've got other little SDK demos. I'm not going to really show you a lot of this type of stuff. This is just my kind of explorer to kind of build things out. But I want to show you something that came up the other day, which is somebody said, hey, can you guys integrate with Slack? And I've heard of Slack. I know it's the cool kid thing now. I'm not a Slack user. So I went and logged into it, read a couple of pages of stuff. I'm kind of like Pat in the sense that I can kind of go figure out how to integrate things. And then I used our SDK to go off and build an integration into Slack. And a lot of what Slack does is has channels that let you go outbound and inbound. And you can actually wire in keywords saying, if it has this keyword, fire my channel. They send you the whole string. You can process that in some way. So what I did is went to Slack here, and I'll show you two things here. This is their native Mac app. They've also got clients on iOS. They're actually very nice. And let's go to something that's maybe a little less full. We can do wave help. In this case, it's not slash. And this tells me a few commands to try. And I'm going to do wave show dash test dashboard. And this will come back with a little preview. And it actually lets you format it, get the icon and that kind of thing. And it's got a link that if I click, will bring me into the Wave Explorer there. And if you look at our REST API in the JSON, you get back at something called the asset sharing URL. So we've already prepared the URL for you. You don't need to go through and try to munge all that together and figure it out. It's actually in the JSON itself, so it makes it simple to go through and explore it. So the point being here is it was very easy to build this. I spent more time learning how to create the cool little thing here. And again, I'm not a designer, so don't knock that. But this is basically some text, which is JSON, along with some markdown inside there to do some formatting and that sort of thing. So things you're probably familiar with. I'm a fan of Slack because they've opened up a lot of things now. We will not say this is an official integration, but you can imagine us doing something like this more officially down the road. This is not bringing the Wave visualizations into Slack. They don't really have that ability to embed stuff right now, but I bet we could get to that at some point. And right now on the mobile app, the cool thing there is if you click on the link, it can take you into the Wave Analytics app, the iOS native app, and see things there. So makes for a neat little integration piece. They can also do inbound type stuff, so you can actually send stuff from your server into Slack and have it notify something. So one of the things we've done a lot of work around our platform is notifications. So I can push things down to my phone, my watch, et cetera, and see something has happened. You can imagine hooking that up so that we could go out to a Slack inbound channel and something pops up inside of somebody's view, they click on it, go into Wave, view it, and that kind of thing. You can also do things with data itself. You can bring in tabular data, but I'm not sure that you would go to Slack to do all your business there. I think it's mainly a communication mechanism, but it is something interesting. And again, I think it shows the power of things like APIs and SDKs, and all of this is built on the summer release. So it's on summer 16. And while I work internal to Salesforce, I actually work on platform just like you guys do. I don't go and work in our source code. I don't go through and modify stuff and put out special versions and that kind of thing. I admit I can go talk to devs and I can kind of see things there. So I have that advantage, but I work purely on platform. This is on my standard GS0 org. Okay, a couple more quick things. I think we're at the end of the slide deck. I want to bring up a Q&A, and Alex back here was kind enough to go get us some sweatshirts, various sizes here. And what we'd like to do is, if you ask some really cool questions, we'll give you a cool sweatshirt. And
It's the Ask Question Challenge.
it's got a Trailhead logo on the back here, so cool stuff, yeah. Ask away, and I'm going to ask the guys in the back to stop looking at their computers and listen to the questions, so in case something comes up that can zing me. Yes?
I've got an Amazon Echo. It's doing some pretty cool stuff. It has an integration called IFTT, or
If this, then that? Sure.
ITTT. I'd love to see some tools built. Is anyone doing anything with Salesforce with that?
So there are some Salesforce IFTTT. Pardon me if I try to pronounce that. So there are some standard Salesforce pieces. I don't know if there's something for Wave yet, but I've actually signed up for their dev program. And I even pulled hey, I'm from Salesforce. We want to do some stuff for Dreamforce. Can I get in? So they got me in their dev program real quickly, but I haven't built anything as of yet. But that's something we've got on our list of things to play with. What I'm hoping is that some of the Salesforce dev evangelists will take this and go and build some things and help us. Because we have a lot of people who go off and get to try interesting things there.
I sit next to the evangelists. I code.
So, I would say go look at IFTTT, and I think if you search Salesforce, you'll see a few of those already.
Yeah, because the Amazon Echo is just pretty amazing. It's obviously voice-activated UI.
I have a 7-year-old who goes around talking about one of his friends has an Echo. He says, yeah, you can just ask it and it'll just find things for you and do things. Yeah, so it sounds pretty cool. I haven't played with one yet. So.
Yeah, it's pretty much around the home right now, but I can definitely see it being used in the office.
Oh, sure.
I have a question for you. Since last Dreamforce, how many Salesforce startups have there been in ecosystems in San Francisco?
Since Dreamforce,
So last year, how many Salesforce startups, because I was ISVs or one servicing OEMs, has there been since the last Dreamforce event?
I don't know. Gabe, do you have any?
Yes, that was the question. How many ISVs have actually launched since the last Dreamforce?
We have ISVs launching on AppExchange all the time. I don't know the exact number.
What are they actually for everybody?
San Francisco.
How are we doing on time? Am I?
Yeah, we have plenty of time. We actually usually pack in 2 speakers, so
Sure.
we'll have extra time, so we're fine.
I can talk until there's no more oxygen left and my voice gives out, but we'll Yes.
So Wave on Android, your slide had a Winter 17 for an Android SDK. Any idea on Wave on coming out on Android?
So there won't be an Android SDK in Winter 17. That might have been ambitious to say we were
Maybe it was
trying for
Spring
that.
17.
It probably Spring 17 is the first we would maybe have it. Again, I think couch this all as safe harbor.
But what about the Wave app being on Android?
I don't know the exact plans on that. I've seen the early versions of it, but I don't know their release schedule. Alex, do you know anything about the Android app?
So we have a dedicated team on that now, which is really good, and they are like Android developers building the Android app. And I know they're working very hard on it to get parity, that's the big thing. So I was gonna maybe say later this year, but we can take your name and we talk to that team, we'll get a better sense for you. But at least we have some folks that are dedicated on that now, so
Okay.
we got to the point that enough people say, hey, we need this, come on. It's like, oh, it's coming. That was a good question. Maybe he should get what is your size? He has a bunch of sizes.
Yeah, we'll give them out after the thing. Anyone else? Yes?
Yeah, I've got a few, maybe I'll do them one at a time here though. So, the analytics or reporting API, it started out as REST only, and then we built like an Apex, I don't know if they call it an SDK, but an Apex API for it. One of the issues with that was test coverage. You had to do see all data is true. It was a little bit of a pain. So I'm wondering, can you draw any parallels between the reporting API and the REST versus Apex, and the Wave SDK, how the Apex will work? Is it going to be similar? Are there going to be any issues with test methods, or is this totally different?
It'll be a totally different code base. I'm not sure about the test or the coverage there. I really don't know for
Maybe
sure.
How would you get test coverage? Can you create these Wave data sets in a test context?
I really don't know what the answer is on that, but that's a good point.
If you have a bunch of Apex code that doesn't fire, you might not be able to upload your package. So
Yeah.
figure something out.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Just trying to do very simple stuff. I'm like, oh, I have to go write tests now. So
I guess that's one of the benefits and drawbacks of doing it in Lightning is you don't have to have the test coverage, but you also don't.
we actually have people asking for Lightning component test coverage, and also for the Wave packages. How do we provide test coverages for things inside there? So people are asking for it. I'd like to think we could make it a something that can be toggled. It's it's not a mandatory thing, especially for things that are metadata driven that we're generating largely. But some customers who really want coverage for everything. Anything created by someone would get some sort of validation.
Yeah, it's good in Apex. People hate it, but it makes your software better in the end. So, somebody else have one?
Yeah, I have a enterprise client very interested in the Wave app. And I'm curious, is there a way right now to configure like a free trial account on top of your Salesforce instance?
So the easiest way is to go do the Trailhead and get an org to play with there.
You did that, yeah.
And then there's a sign up, I believe. I don't know the URL, but we can find that for you. You get a trial org there, so you can play with things. The Trailhead's probably the best way because it gives you an intro to try things out as well.
I'm trying to actually have the account, and I went through several trails. I was just trying to see, we have some live data, like very specific insurance business, to bring the metadata and data, give it some kind of more of a live demo. So I'm not sure, I'm assuming I can add additional objects onto that Trailhead org.
I don't know the full extent of the limits on the Trailhead
That's what I was trying to
version.
You can
Alex, you?
I was just gonna say, so you can sign up, when you get to the standard developer org, with Wave enabled on top of it, you get up to 250,000 records.
Oh,
So hopefully you can kind of play with that a little bit there.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I've actually used it, and yeah, I've got thousands and thousands of records I pushed in by the external data API.
Got it. Thank you.
You get, I think you get 5,000 API calls per hour.
By in-house, you mean non-Salesforce data sources? Oh yeah, yeah.
So we can have multiple data sources connected and have a dashboard created, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just trying to think if there's any way to cover our IP on the calls. Is there any way we could do like use a different API to generate the query so the user wouldn't see what our intellectual property is? Why is it that they have to see the query coming back? Why can't they just see the result coming back? I wonder. What if we used like one of the Apex APIs or
That's a good question. I think that
it's going to be really hard to do development if everybody gets to see, all your work.
I think, like, we have internal apps with the sales app and stuff like that, and they'll be able to see our JSON too. I think it's okay to see if you still have a copyright around it and you're not allowed to use it. I mean, you'd still be breaking the law if you would use that it's just like some other open source software or something
But
like that.
this is the point that the developer team has, developer marketing team brought up, that we need to find a ways to obfuscate some of this. Talk to like some of the Apex teams, see how they did some of this, and see if they can co-opt some of those technologies. So that's actually good feedback. So looking into ways to maybe hide the query or the JSON, and so it's just we couldn't move fast enough to get everything in. This past release was a lot about making things packageable, so you can actually package things and put an AppExchange. Now we're kind of
Okay.
let's take on this.
Because I know if you do a Sauls query or a SQL query, that no one gets to see what the query is. They just see the results coming back.
If you're doing that from Apex.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So one thing may be with the SDK for Apex, you may get some of the benefit. You don't want to hit that directly.
I think that was winter 17, was that possibly? That the Apex was that winter 17 or was it spring 17?
JavaScript is coming in sometime this year. As soon as that's out, we'll work on the next one.
It's going to be tough to see on this small display, but this is a little query test I built with Lightning components. And this is the SQL query here, and then execute. Gosh, I can't see anything on this network thing. There we go. And show you the response here. Is there a formatted response? Where's the little thing to format it? Preview. And this is showing the query coming back along with the result set thing. So obviously you wouldn't want to include this query. You're asking for just the results back, for example.
Yeah.
What we've done in this case is store the query using a custom object in Apex. I just went in, used the standard schema builder, built a couple of Apex classes, and now I can go through and save these queries out. What we've talked about for our API is right now the query API gives you a post basically to run it and get back the results. We want to provide get, post, patch, etc. to actually let you store your non-dashboard, non-lens-based queries on the server side. So you basically be storing those in metadata, part of your packaging. So that's one thought around that.
Okay.
And in that case, you can actually store the query there. You would never send the query down to the client. And you could execute that query by name or ID or something, maybe even parameterizing that with your call. And that way you'd protect your IP.
That sounds
And
really interesting.
we could then filter it and say, when you get the result back, you get back these results with the records, but you wouldn't get this query back in the clear here. Make that an optional thing. So that's not in there right now, but that's kind of the thinking around that kind of thing, is to make queries more of a first-class piece, especially as people build custom apps, because we have customers and partners now saying, I want to use Wave, I want to run queries against it, but I'm not building a dashboard, I'm not even using charts. I've got classic form-based, table-based, et cetera type UIs, but I want to use Wave as the way to get to my data. So that's a good point there. No promises on that, but we'll look into how we can productize that. That's actually the team I'm in the product owner for, so I can help drive towards that. And I'm passionate about it as well. And again, I mocked up a version of this using Apex and S objects and that kind of thing. But we obviously need some filtering on the result there. we're even talking about, how do we do transforms on the result set? So you get back a result and we could transform it into something that's more usable for your client, for example. And we wouldn't have to do all the transform on the client side. Especially great for the poor little mobile devices that, even as cool as these are, still get burdened by large transformers and data sets and that kind of thing. Anyway, that's all thinking out of the box for this, but good question. Other questions? Yes.
This is just more basic. If I am using Wave to visualize data or to analyze data that I have in Salesforce, and the data in Salesforce changes, how quickly is the change reflected in Wave?
So right now, I think it's only guaranteed every 24 hours, but we're working on more granular. Alex, do you want to?
For once an hour, I think there's a new service that is in pilot right now. It's called replication. And replication essentially keeps a watch into the Salesforce data and creates a replicator mirror into Wave. So you get a lot of updates much faster that way. There's a pilot for that right now. I think that will be sometime this year. So keep an eye on that. But the pilot is open, so if you want to get in, we can find a way to get you there.
Who's the best contact for the pilot?
I guess you can start with me, get you contacted to the right person.
All right, any other questions? One more here.
Yeah, so how would it work to package a Wave app with a traditional app? Is it all one package? You just,
One package.
if they don't have the license, then they don't get to see the Wave part of it?
So
Or is it an error or something?
I think right now you would have to know they have Wave. There's a feature we're working on building which would say you have to have Wave there. It's a record that gets part of the package. It would say you have to have Wave installed for it to install there. But right now you can package them with everything else. So we have a couple partners who are saying they're putting everything in the main package. Some are doing like an add-on package, so Wave would sit inside there separately from their traditional, pages and classes and that sort of thing.
And so kind of in line with the replication pilot, and also the Apex SDK, do you think, is there any reason why you couldn't use this as a way, it's part of your transactional, say like in an Apex trigger or something like that, you're querying Wave, be able to get like massive amounts of aggregation done within that small governor limit context of a trigger?
I don't see why you couldn't. I'm not sure of all the mechanics of it. One of the things we've done with Apex and Wave recently has been around Process Builder. And with Process Builder, you can trigger Apex and go through and do various things and return it back to Process Builder. One of the things I said is, hey, can we do Wave for that? So I did the Wave call out, but in that case you have to do a future call out, go through kind of some contortions to call it out. And unfortunately that loses your flow context and you're not back in the process flow. You're sort of broken out of that thing.
So maybe the Apex SDK sort of execution time doesn't fit within the synchronous context of like a traditional Force.com transaction, or?
I'm not sure on that, but I know we would look at things like the, what is the thing called where you do the asynchronous Apex thing? At future, yeah. So we'll look at supporting all that. The goal for us though is not make you do the call outs and all the contortions there, because I had to do things like get a session ID and pass it to this thing and call it. And it was much more complex than I thought it was going to be. I thought, I would just make a REST call. It's like, no, you can't do that. You have to do these things to make it work. And it breaks your context pretty quickly. But our hope is that we can have it where you can use it within Apex very easily now. Just call an API, and you're not worried about whether it's doing it via call outs and that sort of thing. Internally, we have different ways to get to things besides just the pure REST call out. I don't pretend to understand all those, but I understand it's easier to get to stuff than do the REST hop for things like that. All right, other questions?
How does licensing work with Wave everywhere?
So one thing to point out with Lightning out and Aura out and Wave everywhere is that you still are running on Salesforce. You still have a valid Salesforce license. You can't circumvent that. So we're not giving you a way to say use Wave for free. You're not actually running Wave or Lightning or anything else really off platform any more so than you're running REST calls off platform. If you do REST calls into the API, you're still using OAuth, getting a session ID and that kind of thing. You're still a valid Salesforce user. Lightning Out and the Wave Everywhere technology is built on that same technology. It still uses connected apps, it still uses OAuth, still uses session IDs and that sort of thing. So the licensing really doesn't change. As to whether Salesforce decides to sell some of those integrations off platform, that's not for me to decide. That's a sales type thing. But technology-wise, it's the same thing you do with REST today. And that's probably as far as I can comment, because Salesforce will figure out how to market and package it and that kind of thing.
From a community standpoint, obviously community licenses are significantly less than
Sure. And
one, but the Wave licenses are quite a bit. So if you were to expose Wave for community users, I think it makes sense in a lot of ways, but then from a cost standpoint, it can be pretty.
I don't know if Alex wants to chime in. I know I'm not supposed to talk about pricing and that sort of thing. So the question is when you get to Wave for communities, what is the pricing model? Because communities are cheaper.
Launched like a few weeks ago. I'll check on the website, see if they have it listed. I'll take a look right now. Everything is listed, right?
So there's a different license type for
It's probably Wave for communities. I'll check online for that.
All right. Any other questions?
Do you guys do some security testing against, for example, some XSS vulnerability or something like this?
We do lots of security testing. I have spent half my life last year with the product security team. Lightning Out has been blessed by our security team because it requires the administrator to set up cores and a connected app. So it requires some knowledge of setting things up. And you're saying you trust that remote host. The Lightning Locker service that I mentioned earlier is also something that has been pushed very heavily by the product security team to provide a true sandbox for components. And right now, if you try to build a component for AppExchange listing, for example, and you use any kind of third-party libraries or do things that are sort of outside of your component bounds, you'll get flagged pretty quickly. They review each one. With the Locker service, we can relax a lot of those restrictions because you're effectively running in a sandbox there. And you'll need to have whatever libraries you use will have to be the strict mode compliant. They can't use eval and things like that. There's several things they can't do. But most of the modern libraries will actually fit in with this. And they've been testing Locker with things like React and Angular and so forth, all the kind of common ones. But the goal is to make it easier for you and not have to be everything be in an iframe. And not to knock iframes, they have their use, but I personally would like to see us not have iframes everywhere as our integration technology. So we're trying to get away from that wherever possible. So a plug for the Doug's stuff from the Locker service. Go watch his sessions at Trailhead DX or Trailhead DX and look for that kind of stuff. That's going to be pretty cool, and it's going to open up componentization quite a bit. As you know, we're multi-tenant, multi-partner, multi-whatever, much more so than any other cloud. You get to other clouds and they don't really have this ecosystem like we do. And we're trying to make it so that you can build apps for Lightning, for Wave, et cetera, and put them on AppExchange and have all these things interoperate nicely. So yeah, I think, I know I personally feel like I spend a lot of time with them. I haven't done a lot with them yet on Wave, but I'm sure that's coming. Not to knock product security, but it's pretty intense here. All right, anything else? Yes.
I have a very basic question. How much of effort it takes to have the custom object-related database? Like your transactional database is extensible directly to the users, and there's a different set of schema for the Wave supported schema. So what it takes to have the custom objects being supported by the Wave database?
Do you mean like building a data flow for it?
Custom objects, like because the schema is very supports your standard objects, right? So if we have some custom objects, what do you at a high level takes to have that data supported by the
So
data?
the first pass is pretty standard, so the drop down you can see all the objects that the integration user can see. So in this case, you can pick your custom object, right? And the different fields from that. So as far as I know, there's nothing preventing you from using the custom object. So are you having a problem importing the custom object into Wave? Or?
So is it pretty much automated that, for a standard object, these are kind of dimensions fast, is it intelligent enough to build up all those dimensions fast also?
So you can add the XDB around that. So you can essentially map what you want to decorate on the different charts and things like that. So there's nothing preventing you doing that. And we have people that do that with millions and millions of records.
Yes.
have APIs available, right?
Sorry?
So we have APIs available, right?
Yes, today the APIs are available through the endpoints. In fact, just to show you, if you go to any sort of little REST Explorer and let's see. Oops. This is my own version of Workbench, which is Lightning based. Again, I like to use this kind of thing to learn stuff. So I build this to explore things. And this one lets you turn on auto and do an exec. And just like Workbench, go explore the API. So you can go to Wave and then go to Dashboards. And then it finds all the links. And you can say Dashboards here and go look at the JSON here. So again, you see here it's right there next to everything else inside of Salesforce. And you can use that today. Again, if you have a Wave license, this will all be enabled. The SDK is something we're working on. We're hoping by Dreamforce we have a version of it you can take and play with. We'll either provide a managed package or something on GitHub and let you go get that. And I'm hoping I can convince the folks who run the developer zone, that kind of stuff, to let us build some kind of cool Wave developer type thing. You come in and get a little quick start card and you install a managed package and go build something there. That's kind of our goal, is to have that kind of thing ready. And hopefully have a visualization in there so you can put a chart in there and interact with it in some way. But yeah, all these APIs are there. There's really extensive docs. If you go to Wave REST API and then go to the reference, and you can go to each one of these and see, dashboard, for example. Okay.
I was going to show this to the guys. Do you guys have a Wave developer org yet? You should do that before you get out of here. Maybe you should say you cannot get out of here.
So you sent it to my Gmail.
Gee, you only have 10,000 in your inbox. I thought my inbox was full.
So well, look at how much of this is chatter. This, it's because I am the owner of and subscribe to about 1 billion things on Chatter, and
That's that chatter.
it is definitely chatter.
Chatter new guy.
So is this the one right here, Alex? This.
27K.
Whoa.
So if you guys want to look at this, Salesforce.com, obviously, promotions, Wave DF15DE.
Is that link available on the developer?
If you go to Trailhead, you get to that.
Okay.
So this is a way to just go straight to it.
And I think that one gives you an org that has some good sample data so you can play with it. And it's more than just a few records there. Because Wave gets interesting when you get larger data sets. I would advocate doing the Trailhead. It's a great way to kind of get immersed in stuff. I did the Trailhead the first couple days I was working with Wave, and then a couple days later was building stuff with Lightning, integrating it, showing all these things that have led to what you now see for things like the SDK. So with that, we'll start to wrap up. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. We're very passionate about this. The Wave team is building some cool stuff. We're very excited about it. we're very interested in seeing what you guys want to build, what you want to tell us, things you say, hey, it'd be useful if I could do this. What APIs would make it useful? What would you like to see in the SDK? How can we improve your experience? And if you got ideas on stuff, let us know. We'd love to hear about them, see them. We love to see screenshots, demos, mock-ups, and that kind of thing. And if you want assistance on it, you want feedback, just reach out to us. Alex and I spend quite a bit of time each week working with partners and customers, reviewing things and going through in depth, learning about this stuff, trying to help them figure out how to get their apps ready. And reach out to Gabe and others for about partnerships and getting things on AppExchange and so forth. We have a team dedicated to this, and we're very excited that we can open things up to you. We look forward to seeing you at events like Trailhead DX. I'm hoping I can get to go to maybe the Forcelandia thing this year. That looks like a very awesome event. And of course, Dreamforce coming up. And we'll be at various world tours. I was at CeBIT and Boston. We hope to get some more coming up in the next few weeks there. And just reach out to us and let us know what we can do to help you use Wave. And with that, I'll wrap up and say thank you very much.